People are paying $80 a month for B12 injections and Roman 4 energy drips. The foods that actually built human energy sit in the cheapest aisle. You wake up tired, push through on a third cup of coffee, and call it a discipline problem. It may be a chemistry problem instead. One food here carries more vitamin B12 in 3 ounces than most people get in a month, and it comes out of the mud at low tide. And in 1884, a Japanese naval doctor sent 2 warships down the same 9-month route with different food, and only 1 crew came home healthy. These are 12 B vitamin-rich foods that turn exhaustion into energy, counted down from 12 to 1. The last one is the densest of them all. We begin with a seed so ordinary you have walked past it 100 times, in a bin near the checkout, priced like an afterthought. Number 12. Sunflower seeds. A quarter cup delivers one of the richest supplies of vitamin B5 in the entire food supply, and it costs almost nothing. In 1800s Russia, the Orthodox Church's Lenten fasting rules banned most oils and fats. Sunflower oil was not on the list, and that single omission changed everything. Sunflower cultivation exploded across the Russian Empire, field after field, because a technicality in a fasting rule made this one crop legal when the others were forbidden. These seeds are one of the richest sources of pantothenic acid, vitamin B5. Your body converts it into coenzyme A, the molecule that carries fuel into the energy cycle. Without coenzyme A, the food you eat sits at the door of the cell and never gets in. The seeds also carry thiamine, B1, and vitamin B6. A quarter cup of these kernels carries more B5 than a whole avocado, and you can eat that quarter cup standing at the counter in 20 seconds. Buy them raw and unsalted, and keep them in a sealed glass jar. Roasting and salting are what turn a nutrient-dense seed into a snack food. Store that jar cold, on a refrigerator shelf. B vitamins and the seed oils both degrade with heat and light, so a warm pantry quietly costs you. So it wasn't just a snack scattered on a salad. It was a fasting loophole that fed an empire, holding the exact molecule your cells use to burn fuel. From an open field under full sun, we move to the opposite ground, somewhere dark and damp, where number 11 grows without any light at all. Number 11, mushrooms. They are one of the very few foods that are not animal products, yet still deliver B vitamins at the density meat does. Roman writers called them cibus deorum, food of the gods. That is not a chef's flourish. It is what the men who ran an empire actually wrote down. Egyptian records describe mushrooms as reserved for pharaohs, kept off the plates of ordinary people. A food you can now buy for pocket change was once restricted by rank. Mushrooms are dense in riboflavin, B2, niacin, B3, and pantothenic acid, B5. Those 3 sit directly inside the electron transport chain, where your cells finish making ATP. A single cup of sliced mushrooms delivers riboflavin in the same territory as a glass of milk. The food most people assume owns that vitamin outright. Here is where most people lose it. B vitamins are water-soluble, so the moment mushrooms sit in liquid, the thing you bought them for starts leaving. Dry sear them. Hot pan, no water, no oil at first. They release their own moisture, it evaporates, and they brown instead of stewing in their loss. Boiling does the opposite. The vitamins leach into water that most of us pour straight down the sink, which is why gray cooking water is a warning sign. The Romans were not wrong about what they were eating. They simply had no word yet for what it was doing inside them. Now we leave the forest floor for a sunlit field, and for a crop so old that people were planting it before written language existed. Number 10, chickpeas. A single cooked cup covers over half your daily vitamin B6, and almost nobody thinks of them as an energy food. Chickpeas were cultivated in the Levant for more than 9,000 years, among the earliest crops ever domesticated. The Roman name Cicero comes from cicer, Latin for chickpea. The Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, and the Mediterranean each built a staple daily dish around the same legume, independently. That kind of convergence is evidence. A single cooked cup carries roughly 55% of a day's vitamin B6, along with folate. B6 is required to build hemoglobin, the carrier that moves oxygen. That 1 cup holds about as much B6 as 2 bananas, the food people reach for when they want quick energy without knowing why it works. And when B6 runs short, your tissues can starve for oxygen even when your iron levels look perfectly fine on paper. That is a fatigue blood work often misses. Add a pinch of baking soda to the cooking water. It softens the skins and cuts the cooking time, so less of that water-soluble B content boils away. You will see the loosened skins float to the surface. That is your signal the pot is doing its work, and that dinner will not need another hour. So the chickpea was never simply peasant filler. It was the crop 3 separate civilizations arrived at alone, each one building a daily meal around the same small seed. From a bowl on a table, we move to a branch, and to a tree that appears in scripture doing something no other tree in the text does. Number 9, almonds. They are one of the densest plant sources of riboflavin, and riboflavin is the vitamin that keeps all the others working. In number 17, 8, Aaron's staff budded, blossomed, and produced almonds overnight. A dead piece of wood, chosen out of 12, and it was the almond it produced. In Exodus 25, 33-34, the golden lampstand in the tabernacle was ordered to be shaped with cups like almond blossoms. The light itself was modeled on this tree. Almonds carry roughly 1 milligrams of riboflavin per 100 grams, one of the highest levels in any plant food. Riboflavin recycles the other B vitamins into their active forms. A handful of almonds delivers riboflavin in the same range as a glass of milk. Without it, the whole B group quietly stops functioning properly. That is the part people miss. You can eat every other B vitamin on this list, and if riboflavin is short, your body cannot switch them on. Eat them whole, with the brown skin left on. A large share of the antioxidant content sits in exactly the layer that blanching strips off and throws away. A measured handful is enough. This is not a food you need in volume, it is one you need consistently, a small amount on most days. 1 almond in the palm of your hand looks like nothing at all. Inside, it is the vitamin that decides whether every other one you eat gets used. The orchard gives way to a tent, and to a food so old that scripture uses it as shorthand for hospitality and abundance itself. Number 8, cultured dairy, yogurt in particular. It is the single largest source of riboflavin in the modern Western diet, and it also delivers B12. In Genesis 18:8, Abraham set curds and milk before his visitors. Cultured dairy was what you brought out for guests, the best thing in the tent. And in Exodus 3:8, the promised land is described as flowing with milk and honey. The image chosen for abundance was not gold or grain, but dairy. Riboflavin, B2, is what makes dairy quietly essential. It is the vitamin that lets your cells pull energy out of fat, protein, and carbohydrate alike. A single cup of yogurt carries more riboflavin than 2 eggs, and unlike most plant foods, it brings B12 along with it in the same spoonful. But riboflavin is destroyed by light. That is the documented reason the dairy industry moved milk out of clear glass bottles and into opaque cartons decades ago. So store yours in an opaque container, away from light. A jug on a sunlit counter is losing the exact vitamin you bought it for, hour by hour. Choose it plain and unsweetened. Flavored versions can carry as much sugar as a dessert, which turns a steady energy food into a spike and a crash. Set curds before a guest, and you were not just feeding him. You were handing him the densest riboflavin source anyone in that landscape had access to. Now the tent opens onto a field of grain, and onto the strangest story on this list. One that begins with 2 warships and a doctor nobody believed. Number 7, barley. Ruth gleaned it in the harvest fields of Ruth chapter 2, and 5 barley loaves feed the multitude in John 6:9. Takaki Kanehiro was a Japanese naval doctor trained in Britain. Beriberi was devastating the fleet, and every authority around him was certain the cause was infection. He read the sick lists and saw something no germ could explain. Officers, who ate varied food, were largely spared. The men below deck, eating polished rice, were not. One earlier 9-month voyage had come home with roughly 169 cases of beriberi and 25 deaths. A full classroom of young men, lost without a battle. Their ration was polished white rice, scooped from a barrel, meal after meal, month after month. Clean, white, prestigious, and stripped of the layer that held the thiamine. So in 1884, he arranged an experiment. The training ship Tsukuba would sail the same 9-month route, with the polished rice ration replaced by barley, meat, and vegetables. The Tsukuba came home with about 14 cases of beriberi and not one death. Same route, same duration, same navy, same men, different barrel. And the few men who did fall ill were the ones who had refused the new rations and kept eating the rice. The sick bay stayed nearly empty. Hulled barley keeps its germ and bran layers, and that is where thiamine, vitamin B1, sits. Thiamine is the gatekeeper that lets you turn carbohydrate into energy at all. Polish a rice grain white, and you remove that same outer layer. The sailors were eating fuel with the key to the ignition sanded off. That is why a diet built on polished white rice produced beriberi, and why a grain most people now dismiss as soup filler kept that crew standing. Buy hulled barley, not pearl barley. Pearling polishes away the very layer that holds the thiamine, the same mistake that was made with the rice. Soak it overnight in a bowl of water on the counter. It shortens the cooking time considerably, which is the difference between a nice idea and a weeknight meal. Barley was the grain of the poor and the ration that kept a crew alive. If this is helping, like and subscribe, because what is coming is stranger still. Number 6. Leafy greens, spinach above all. This is the food that gave folate its name, and folate shortage produces a very particular kind of heavy fatigue. Folate was first isolated from spinach leaves in 1941 and named from folium, the Latin word for leaf. The vitamin carries the name of the leaf it came from. In the early 1930s, the British doctor Lucy Wills, working in Bombay, showed that a crude yeast extract corrected a severe anemia no known nutrient could explain. That missing factor was later identified as folate, vitamin B9. It is required to build and repair DNA and to bring red blood cells to maturity. Without it, those cells enlarge and fail to carry oxygen efficiently, producing a heavy, weighted fatigue. A large bowl of spinach carries several times the folate of an orange, but folate is heat sensitive. Prolonged boiling can destroy roughly half of it, and that bright green water going down your drain is carrying the rest away. So eat them raw or steam them for about 90 seconds. 90 seconds, not 5 minutes, is the whole difference between keeping the folate and pouring it out. Raw is easiest. A bowl of leaves with olive oil and lemon takes 2 minutes and asks nothing of your stove at all. Lucy Wills found the answer in a jar of yeast extract before anyone could name it. The leaves in your garden had been carrying it the whole time. From leaves, we moved to seeds again, and to a legume that once cost a man his birthright in a single hungry afternoon. Number 5. Lentils. 1 cooked cup delivers roughly 90% of a day's folate, alongside thiamine and iron, from a food that has fed armies. In Genesis 25, 29-34, Esau traded his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of red lentil stew. Ezekiel 4, 9 names lentils among the grains for the prophet's bread. Roman legions carried lentils on campaign, Indian kitchens built daily dal around them, Egyptian tombs were stocked with them. 3 worlds arrived at the same seed separately. 1 cooked cup carries roughly 90% of a day's folate, the vitamin that matures your red blood cells, plus thiamine, which unlocks carbohydrate as fuel. To match that folate with asparagus, you would need to eat a large bunch of it, spears and all, in one sitting. The lentils cost a fraction as much, and iron travels with that folate in the same spoonful, which matters, because folate builds the red blood cells and iron is what fills them. Soak them before cooking. It shortens the time on the heat, and less time in boiling water means less of the folate ends up in the pot liquid. Then finish the cooked lentils with lemon juice. Vitamin C sharply increases how much of that plant iron your body actually absorbs, and it costs you 1 lemon. Esau did not trade a kingdom for a cheap bowl of soup. He traded it for the most concentrated folate a hungry man could get his hands on. From a clay pot, we move to a basket, and to the single most ordinary food in any kitchen, the one people keep throwing half of away. Number 4, eggs. They carry B12, riboflavin, and biotin together, and nearly all of it sits in the part most people are still discarding. Job 6 refers to the white of an egg, a passing line about food without taste. Even then, the white was the part with nothing in it. In Luke 11:12, Jesus asks what father would hand his son a scorpion instead of an egg. The egg stands in for the plainest good thing a parent gives. Nearly all of the B12 and the choline sit in the yolk, not the white. The yolk is not the part to be afraid of, It is the point. Put a yolk in one bowl and a white in another, and you have separated almost all of the B vitamins from almost none of them. Eggs also bring riboflavin and biotin, B7, in the same shell. 2 eggs at breakfast is one of the cheapest B12 deliveries available to anyone anywhere. Cook them to a soft or jammy yolk rather than hard. A firm, chalky center means you have driven heat through the exact part holding the nutrients, and never discard the yolk. An egg white omelet is a dish built by removing the reason the egg was worth eating in the first place. Hold one up to the light, and you are holding a complete starter kit for a living animal. That is why the nutrition inside it is so dense. The basket gives way to running water, and to a fish that appears in the Gospels as ordinary daily food, eaten without ceremony. Number 3, wild salmon. A single fillet supplies several times a day's B12, along with niacin and vitamin B6, the combination your nervous system runs on. In Luke 24:42-43, the risen Jesus takes a piece of broiled fish and eats it. Of everything he could have done, he ate what fishermen ate. Fish appear again and again through the Gospels, never as luxury, always as ordinary daily food. Bread and fish, over and over, in the plainest possible setting. Niacin, B3, and vitamin B6 are what your body uses to build myelin, the sheath around your nerves, and the neurotransmitters that carry signals along them. A salmon fillet carries B12, a plated chicken breast cannot come close to matching. That is why a shortage shows as mental fog before it ever shows in blood work. The mistake almost everyone makes is heat. Overcooking drives out moisture and the heat-sensitive B vitamins together, leaving you dry fish with less of what you paid for. Cook it skin on and pull it off the heat at about 125 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 52 Celsius, while the center is still translucent. If you have no thermometer, watch the flake. When a fork separates it easily and the very middle still looks glassy, it is done, and anything more is loss. That broiled fish on the shore was never just a meal shared at dawn. It was the exact nutrient package a human nervous system is built to run on. The river runs out to the sea, and the tide goes out with it, uncovering the food I promised you at the very start. Number 2, clams. At the start, I told you one food carries more B12 in 3 ounces than most people get in a month. This is it. Coastal shell middens across Europe and North America record thousands of years of continuous shellfish harvest. Mounds of shells, stacked by generation after generation, still standing today. Roman coastal settlements ran an organized shellfish trade. Not people picking at a beach for scraps, but a trade worth organizing and running. 3 ounces of steamed clams carry roughly 84 micrograms of vitamin B12, around 500% of a day's requirement. That is more than any other food on Earth. You would have to eat a whole beefsteak many times over to reach what fits in a small bowl of clams. One serving, 35 days of B12. B12 is what your body uses to build red blood cells and maintain the sheath around your nerves. Run short of it and everything slows, body and mind together. Steam them in their own liquor and drink the broth. B12 is water-soluble, so a meaningful share of it leaches straight into that liquid. With canned clams, use the packing liquid rather than draining it away. Tipping that liquid into the sink is pouring out part of what you bought. Those shell mounds are not rubbish heaps. They are thousands of years of people returning to the same tidal flat because it worked, long before anyone could say why. Which leaves number 1, and for that the tide goes back out, and we walk up to a butcher's counter for the densest B vitamin food there is. Number 1, beef liver. Nothing else on this list carries B12, folate, riboflavin, B6, and pantothenic acid together, all in one small slice. Ancient Egyptian medical papyri, and later Greek practice, recorded liver being prescribed for night blindness. Thousands of years before anybody had identified a single vitamin. And Leviticus 3:4 specifies the appendage of the liver among the portions reserved for the altar. Of all the organs, that one was set apart deliberately. Beef liver is the densest natural source of B vitamins as a group. A single small serving covers many times a day's B12 requirement on its own. To match one slice of liver, you would need a whole spread of other foods across the table, and you still would not cover every B vitamin at once. That is the whole reason it sits at number 1. 1 food, 5 B vitamins, no supplement stack, no injection, no monthly bill. Soak the slices in milk for about 30 minutes first. It mellows the mineral flavor that puts most people off liver on their very first attempt. Then sear it roughly 2 minutes aside and leave the center pink. Overcooking toughens it and destroys the heat-sensitive B vitamins you cooked it for. The offcut nobody wanted was never a poor man's leftover. It was the most complete B vitamin food on earth, and the priests knew which portion to set aside. 12 foods, 1 empty plate, and a pattern that runs through every single one of them if you step back far enough to see it. Sunflower seeds, mushrooms, chickpeas, almonds, yogurt, barley, greens, lentils, eggs, salmon, clams, and beef liver. Not one of them is rare, and not one is expensive. Here is the thread. Exhaustion is often not a failure of willpower or sleep, but a shortage of the B vitamins your cells use to turn food into energy. And every food on this list delivers those vitamins in the exact form your body already knows how to use, which is something no bottle can promise. This is educational content only, not medical advice. Here is the challenge. Pick one single food from this list and eat it 3 times this coming week. Then tell me in the comments which one you chose and whether the afternoon crash softened. I read them, and the answers people leave are useful to everyone here. If this changed how you look at your kitchen, subscribe. The next